Enough delegates to clinch the Republican nomination. It becomes official at the GOP convention in July. Here to discuss, CNN political commentator Andy Dean, who is a Trump supporter, CNN political contributor Van Jones, Michael Isikoff, the chief investigative correspondent for Yahoo News and the author of Uncovering Clinton, a reporter's story. Also here, CNN political contributor Maria Cardona, who is a superdelegate committed to Clinton. Isn't that special? And Matt Lewis, senior contributor to the Daily Caller and the author of Too Dumb to Fail. I mean, she's super. She's a super delegate. That's like a. Do you guys have Uber delegates too? I mean, after that, what's next? Andy Dean, let's start with you. 1237. You know he got it today. Here is Donald Trump, how he celebrated with McDonald's. Did he really eat that burger, you think?
He does like McDonald's, Don. And actually, we're at 1238 now. So that's very exciting. And look,
1237
10 months
plus
ago,
1.
Right, 1237 plus 1, which was the number we needed to get to. And 10 months ago, when this all began, there were 2 or 3 people on television. I think there was Jeffrey Lord, myself, and Donald Trump who thought this was possible. And 10 months later, because of his hard work, we are where we are right now, which is, this is history in the making. And it's exciting. So it's a massive, monumental day. And the fact that he did it before the convention, nobody expected. So it's exciting.
So while Trump, was loving it, see what I did there? Hillary Clinton was talking with Wolf Blitzer.
Product placement.
Yeah, talking with Wolf Blitzer. Here's what she said.
I know that Trump thinks this is a point of pride, that people, like me or President Obama raise questions and criticize him, but it's not. This is not a reality show. It's not just politics. It's really serious. The entire world looks to the President of the United States for leadership and stability, and that is the kind of leadership I would provide if elected.
What do you think, Andy?
Well, the idea of leadership coming from Hillary Clinton is bizarre. I mean, this is somebody the night when Benghazi was under attack was sleeping, and then the next morning she concocted some bizarre story with Susan Rice blaming a YouTube video. So we're not going to take lectures from crooked Hillary about leadership. And also, the American people, most importantly, are looking for leadership in the economy. They're looking for jobs, and they're looking for wage increases. And we're going to ask tough questions when Trump becomes president, Don. Questions like, one thing, Don. Why in China has the middle class income risen by over 80% over the past 15 years, whereas in America it's risen by less than 2% over the past decade?
I've got 4 other people on
here?
that need to get in. Go ahead, Van.
Don't worry about him, Don. Don't worry about him.
Go ahead, Van.
Well, I mean, first of all, him asking questions, that's the only thing he can really do because he doesn't actually have any answers. He's the master of giving you an explanation that there is a problem without telling you how he can possibly solve it. And if he tells you how he's going to solve it, he'll change it the next day. Look, I think it's a very, very sad day in America. You are right. Andy is 100% right. Nobody thought this was possible because nobody believed that someone with this little experience, with this sort of temperament and tone, who's been this divisive, would be able to secure the nomination for a major party. I hope that this fact will sober up Americans. A lot of people have thought this is kind of a joke, it's sending a good signal, but I'll tell you what, the President of the United States being this erratic on so many different issues is a dangerous, the stock market, the Economist magazine says that a Trump presidency would be a threat to global stability. That's not a liberal rag.
But Matt,
it is a liberal rag.
Hang on, but Matt, you say that President Obama is partially to blame for the rise of Trump.
Oh, I think that's true. Look, I don't want to absolve the right of their sins and their part to play on this, but I absolutely think it's true. I mean, for one thing, these two guys, Barack Obama, President Obama, and Mr. Trump, have some things in common. I think both are pretty big on the ego. Both are very thin-skinned, and both seem to have somewhat of an authoritarian streak, and not a huge respect for separation of powers from either of these two guys.
Matt.
So look, I think
What?
that Barack Obama, in 2 ways, sort of paved the path to this, and one way I think he greased the skids to kind of accept somebody like a Donald Trump, who was, President Obama. The first thing he does when he gets elected, number one, he hasn't quit blaming his predecessor, President Bush, for mistakes that were made, and and then he tells, he pushes through this Obamacare with doesn't even get a single Republican
A
in the Senate
majority
to
of the
support
vote?
it.
Michael,
So-
go ahead.
Yeah.
Michael, do you agree with that? What do you make of all this?
Well, look, I make of the fact that it's an unbelievable achievement that Trump is where he is today, but he's still got quite a few hurdles to pass here. For one thing, he still doesn't have the endorsement of the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, who's going to be chairman of the Republican convention. And that tells you a lot about the unease that's still out there in Republican circles about Donald Trump. I mean, Ryan in particular is the guy to watch here. There was a lot of expectation that he would come around and endorse, but I'm told that by senior aides that he's not there yet. He still has real problems with Trump's positions on entitlement reform, religious freedom, immigration, and this is a really interesting test of politics versus principle, because the politics would clearly dictate him and others in the House coming aboard the Trump train now that he's clearly going to be the nominee. But, for some people, and Ryan is a good example, principle does count. And they're having a hard time coming around.
Well, here's what
it's an important option.
Everyone, here's what Michael Isikoff says. And Michael Isikoff says that Trump is winging it through the entire process. I want you to listen to what Trump said tonight, and then we'll discuss. Listen to this.
Him a credit. They don't want to say how smart he is, what he will do, what he can accomplish. They don't want to give him a credit.
Why? Why do you think that?
Because maybe because he's outsider. He's not part of Washington. He speaks his mind. He doesn't sweep under the rug. He says as he thinks and what needs to be said, because he's not the politician. He's not into just talking. He's a doer. He gets the thing done.
Well, obviously that was not Donald Trump. That was his wife, Melania. Maybe she was answering the question. Let's play what Donald Trump said, and then we'll discuss.
I don't know if you heard, but I have one of the highest poll numbers ever recorded with men, and I would swap it for the women right now, okay? I want the women. The hell with the men. The hell with the men, right, men?
Okay, so as I said, Michael Isikoff said that he's winging it. But my question is this winging it, does it appear to be helping him more than hurting him, or vice versa? I'm not sure here, because he's not the presumptive nominee anymore. He is until July when it's official. Do you think
So-
Go ahead, Maria.
So, Don, I think one of the things that we need to clarify here is that Donald Trump is a Republican monster of their own making. He is not the problem. He is a symptom of something that has been going on in the Republican Party ever since the beginning of the Southern strategy, followed by suppression of the voting rights, shredding of the Voting Rights Act, voter ID laws, the awful rhetoric that started years ago on immigration and on how they treat immigrants in this country. And so that is what has given rise to somebody like Donald Trump, because Republicans have made it okay to talk about these divisive issues in this inflammatory manner. Now, to your question, the way that he talks right now has been the way that he got the Republican nomination. But I think what is going to slap him in the face is that he is now going to be facing a very different electorate, with women, with minorities, with young people, with progressives and independents who are appalled that this is somebody that we are actually considering even in terms of being our next commander-in-chief.
Okay. Hold your thoughts, everyone. I know you want to get in on that. We're going to discuss what Maria just said. Plus, we're going to talk about Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. They say they want to debate each other. Will it happen? And what about Hillary Clinton? Delegates he needs to clinch the GOP nomination. Back with me, Andy Dean, Van Jones, Michael Isikoff, Maria Cardona, and Matt Lewis. Matt Lewis, we'll with all of this talk about a possible debate between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Explain this to me.
Well, I guess it came up on Jimmy Kimmel last night, and it's probably not going to happen. I think Donald Trump wants $10 million to charity to do it. But I think the real question, the interesting question is how would it affect Hillary Clinton? And I actually think it could go either way. And I think it depends on whether or not Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have a sort of fun sparring match for charity, or a knockout, punch out. Because think of it this way. If they kind of have this light banter and have fun, all of a sudden Hillary Clinton's, left in the dark. She's not getting attention. Bernie's getting attention. Not good for Hillary. On the other hand, what if Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump start duking it out and it turns ugly? Now all of a sudden, this is a problem, for Trump, right? Because the hope, I think, for Donald Trump hopes that some of the Bernie Sanders supporters might end up, it's not likely many of them will, but some of them in November might end up voting for Trump instead of Hillary. And that's not going to happen if Trump and Bernie mix it up too much. So fascinating, possibilities here.
I wonder if Bernie would say, I'm sick of hearing about your damn taxes, Van. See, emails, taxes over here. He continues to say, Donald Trump continues to say he's going to release his tax forms when his audit is over. Do you believe he will? Does it look like he has something to hide by not releasing them?
Oh, I don't think that he will, and he does have something to hide. I think he has decided that whatever is in there, he's willing to take the beating of being the first nominee in 40 years, not to let the American people know where his bread is buttered. Something is in there that's pretty shocking break with tradition. There's got to be something in there he thinks is awful. He probably has not given a penny to charity. In fact, he still has this problem right now. Yeah. He made this big stink about he's going to give all this money to the veterans. The veterans are saying we never got a penny. So there's something in there that he's hiding from.
Michael,
Don, can I just
ahead,
point out that probably the most newsworthy part of that fascinating interview that Paul Manafort, his new campaign chairman, gave to Huffington Post this week.
Can I read? Let me read a part of it.
He said he doesn't think he is going to release them.
You can respond. I want to read it since you mentioned it. He says, I will be surprised if he puts them out. I wouldn't necessarily advise him to. It's not really an issue for the people we are appealing to. His tax returns are incredibly complicated. I wouldn't understand them. So how are the American people going to? The financial disclosure he put out gives a salient point. The only people who want the tax returns are the people who want to defeat him. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, look, going back to Richard Nixon, every presidential candidate has released his tax returns. And that signal from Manafort saying, this is the people we are appealing to don't care about this is, just a crystal clear example of how much he deviates from the norm of presidential candidates. And it's hard to imagine this is going to go away. All you have to do is think back to 2012 and how much the Democrats hammered Romney until he finally did release his taxes and how big of an issue that became. There's no way that the Clinton campaign, Clinton super PACs are not going to be hammering this right up to election day. And there are real issues here. How much did he pay in taxes? Real estate developers are very good and very clever at avoiding paying taxes. And remember that exchange with George Stephanopoulos when he finally asked him, what's your tax rate? And he said, none of your business. That was a pretty stunning remark.
Hang on, Maria. I want Andy to get in. Andy, why the discrepancy between what Trump says and what Manafort said? Are they on the same page?
Well, look, Donald has a lot of people out there speaking their mind, so I can't know what's going on in Paul Manafort's head. But, Don, there are a couple of points I'd like to make here. First, to Van Jones saying, oh, maybe Trump hasn't given anything to charity. I ran Donald Trump's television company for 5 years, and we did a little show called The Celebrity Apprentice. And Donald gave over tens of millions of dollars to charity. So this idea that he hasn't given any money to charity is as offensive as it is ludicrous, and it's just not accurate. I feel like my head's...
How much?
Well, remember, some of these tax returns are done in productions and partnerships. The Celebrity Apprentice is done with Mark Burnett. So in certain years, there may be returns where money is gained or lost. You got to understand,
But you can shut people up like Van Jones if you just said, look, the tax return would just say, nope, he paid 30, he gave 30%, and it just shut Van right down.
Please shut me up. Please.
Okay, two quick things. One, he's under audit. So any person with half a brain when you're under audit from the IRS doesn't release the returns because once again, CNN will get great lawyers on pointing out tax strategies.
We've gone through this before.
It's absolutely true.
Go on.
I know we're repeating the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's
What's the
not
other
total
point?
garbage. Why would you do that? Okay, the other point is this. Donald Trump's investments, like for instance, I remember when I first joined him, we worked on the Las Vegas Tower. Okay, that takes 3 years to build. There's a massive $500 million loan involved. And so you can't look at 1 year of tax returns and say, oh, well, he made this or lost that. Donald Trump's taxes, when he has hundreds of entities that are making tens of millions of dollars each, there's a gigantic
That's easily explainable.
world
You just
here. No, but
explained
the
it.
media, no, it's
Yes.
not, though.
But you
The
just
media,
explained
no,
it.
the
But also
media.
on the other
How about
side,
put out
hang on,
33
Maria,
years of
hold
Van
on.
Jones.
Well, yeah, the other years. What about the other
Yeah.
years?
Yep.
Okay, hold on. What will happen is if he releases 1 year or 3 years, you'll say, well, why isn't he releasing 5 years or 10 years? And the media will take 10 pages of his return, and they won't paint the whole picture because a lot of this stuff involves deductions across multiple companies.
So
And it
what?
would literally be like, hey,
So what?
Okay,
that's
done.
that's
It would
why
be like
that's why
handing-
we
I will
have
give you-
Andy Dean on this show at least 2 or 3 times a week to explain
Don,
to us
our
what
tax
is
code
going
is
on
so
with
messed
Donald
up.
Trump. So if
As
you
bright
hang
as-
on, Andy,
as bright as
let
I
me
might
make a
be,
point, Andy,
as
and then
bright
I'll let
as
you
I might
finish.
be, go
Hang
ahead.
on. So
ahead.
if he releases his tax returns and you said you ran his business for 5 years, what
Television.
better person to have on CNN Tonight with Don Lemon than Andy Dean to explain Trump's financials to the American people, not only to the American people, but to all the other countries that we air in the world? You would be the perfect person. I do understand your point. It does not make sense.
Now, we sold The Apprentice in over 100 countries around the world. Donald has tax professionals in New York City that do complex tax transactions over multiple entities. You understand, our tax code in this country is so messed up that even I, the head of the production company, when you take hundreds of companies in one return, I couldn't understand it. Literally, there are very few tax professionals on earth that understand this stuff, and it's because liberals have destroyed our tax code.
Oh, my
We need a
gosh,
flat
Andy,
tax.
hold
Ask
your
Van
thought.
Jones.
All right, Andy.
Why don't we have a flat tax? Our tax code sucks.
All right.
You know
Well,
what,
that's a
Don?
perfect argument for Donald Trump. That's why I
Yeah.
want to change the
Right.
tax code,
So
is
let's
because
not
it's so
release it and change
complicated.
it.
So
So
you're really not making sense here, Andy. I have to be honest.
I am, Don.
We'll be right
Our
back.
tax
We'll be right
is so
back. I'll let you
ridiculous.
talk after
Thank
the
you.
break. Listen, it's a short segment. I'm back with my panel now. So, Andy, I want you to respond about the income taxes. And I'm going to put this up because this is Paul Manafort. The last line in his statement says, the only people who want the tax returns are the people who want to defeat him. Is there something in there that would allow him to be defeated if it was released?
No, I think, Don, with all respect, and you're a great guy, it's a little bit of a misquote. I think what Paul was saying is that the only people who care about this issue are people who don't like Donald Trump anyway. So
This quote, I read his exact
Donald, while
words.
he's on, what was there a dot that my monitor I can't
The
see.
only
I mean,
people who
usually these
want the tax
interviews-
returns are the people who want to defeat him.
Yeah, exactly. The only
So-
people who care about this stuff, this nonsense, are people who want to defeat him. The American people care about jobs and they want a business. Remember, one thing, Don. This is the demonization of success. Anytime you have a gigantic businessman who's a
How is
multi-billionaire,
releasing tax
you're
returns the
demonizing-
demonization of success?
Don, if I could
That's
jump
not
in here.
because you've never had a
You're
billionaire run
doing
for
double
office
talk.
like
All right,
this,
let's
ever.
move on.
Don.
Andy, you're double speaking. No, I want to move on
a
because I'm going to talk about
multi-billionaire.
something that you think is probably
I'm
more
gonna go
important, and
jump
that
in the
is,
intercoastal behind me.
we're going to talk about the emails. I'm sure you would like to hear about that more, and I'm going to start with Michael. Michael, I want to play more on Wolf Blitzer's phone interview with Hillary Clinton. She is pushing back against the IG report on her emails. Here it is.
This report makes clear that personal email use was the practice under other secretaries of state, and the rules were not clarified until after I had left. But as I've said many times, it was still a mistake. If I could go back, I'd do it differently. And I understand people have concerns about this, but I hope voters look at the full picture of everything that I've done and the full threat posed by a Donald Trump presidency. And if they do, I have faith in the American people. They'll make the right choice.
So the question, she's saying that the threat posed by Trump is bigger than the concern over her emails. Is she sort of obfuscating there, or maybe even projecting?
Well, look, there's no question that was an absolutely devastating report from the State Department Inspector General. The Inspector General made it clear, this is an Obama appointee, by the way, that the rules did not permit what she said they permitted, that she never asked for permission, she never got advice from the State Department lawyers, and you know, there are some, you know, really startling nuggets in that report. One that hasn't gotten nearly enough attention is two staffers in her inner office raised questions about that, said they had concerns that federal records weren't being preserved, and the top information officer in her inner office said, don't talk about this ever again. We're here to support the secretary. Basically, shut up. That is in the report. It's a startling passage, and I think we're going to be hearing more about it. Cheryl Mills, her former chief of staff, is going to be deposed tomorrow in the lawsuit brought by Judicial Watch. That's going to be released next week. She's going to be hammered with questions from this report. There's a lot of ammunition for Hillary Clinton's critics to continue to bring this up, and of course, we're all waiting for what the FBI concludes.
I really have to I've got to give a lightning round, Maria. You got to be quick.
First of all, there's nothing new in the report. Secondly, she apologized and
There's
said it was
plenty
not
new
a
in the
good.
report,
It was not a
Maria.
good
That's
idea.
absolutely
Maria, there was a lot
There-
new in that report.
There was a lot new in the
no,
report.
There was a lot that the
really
American
isn't. There's
public
nothing
didn't know.
that we
Hadn't
didn't
even
really
seen.
know. There's nothing that we
Let her
didn't
finish.
already know. Number two, she already apologized. And number three, this is like a political Rorschach test, which is that people who support Hillary Clinton are not going to change their vote. People who oppose her absolutely are going to use this as fodder. But she wakes up in the morning and they use that as fodder. The people who are looking for solutions are going to look at the contrast between Hillary Clinton, who has spent 30 years of her public life focused on trying to solve those problems, versus Donald Trump, who the only thing he can talk about is building walls and building a statue to himself. I mean, who is this guy? Saddam Hussein or Mao Zedong?
I've got to go. Matt and Van, I have to go. I'll give you the last word, and if you can give me an answer. What's a bigger issue, taxes or emails? First, Matt.
Oh, I think emails are a way bigger issue. I mean,
Van?
not even close.
Good answer.
I think the emails are going to be a problem for her going forward, but I think the tax issue is also very serious.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Don.
We'll be right
Thanks,
back.
Don. Have a good night.